The morning sunlight filtered through the tall windows of Kensington Palace as Catherine sat at her mahogany desk, reviewing the day's schedule. Her fingers traced the edge of a cream-colored envelope that had arrived with the Morning Post, bearing the familiar crest she had come to recognize over the years. The weight of the paper felt heavier than usual, and something in her intuition told her this was not ordinary correspondence. William emerged from his study, his face bearing the telltale signs of a sleepless night. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his usually pristine appearance seemed slightly disheveled. He paused in the doorway, watching his wife's graceful movements as she carefully opened the envelope. The silence between them spoke volumes about the unspoken tension that had been building over the past few weeks. "The letter from grandmother arrived," Catherine said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. William's steps faltered slightly as he approached, knowing instinctively that this moment would change everything. The Queen's handwriting, still elegant despite her advanced years, filled the page with words that would reshape their understanding of duty, family, and the weight of the crown. As Catherine read aloud, her voice trembled slightly with each carefully chosen word. The Queen's message was clear yet gentle, explaining her decision to step back from certain royal duties due to her declining health. More importantly, she expressed her desire to spend her remaining time focusing on what truly mattered to her family, her legacy, and ensuring a smooth transition for the future of the monarchy. William sank into the chair beside his wife, the magnitude of the situation settling over both of them like a heavy blanket. This was not just about royal protocol or constitutional matters. This was about a grandmother who had been the cornerstone of their family, the steady presence who had guided them through countless challenges and celebrations. The realization that her time was becoming more precious made every moment feel both urgent and sacred. The couple sat in contemplative silence, their hands finding each other naturally. Catherine's thumb traced gentle circles on William's palm, a gesture of comfort that had become second nature over their years together. They both understood that this news would require them to make difficult decisions about their own roles, their children's futures, and how to honor the Queen's wishes while maintaining their own family's well-being. Outside, the grounds of Kensington Palace continued their daily rhythm, with gardeners tending to the rose bushes and staff members going about their morning routines. Yet inside this intimate space, William and Catherine grappled with the profound shift that was about to occur in their lives. The weight of responsibility had always been present, but now it felt more immediate and personal than ever before. Catherine folded the letter carefully, placing it back in its envelope with the reverence one might show a treasured family heirloom. The formality of the royal correspondence contrasted sharply with the deeply personal nature of its contents. This was not just a duty being passed down through generations. It was a grandmother entrusting her life's work to those she loved most. William finally broke the silence, his voice thick with emotion as he spoke about memories of his grandmother's unwavering strength throughout his childhood and adult years. He recalled how she had been his anchor during the darkest periods of his life, particularly after his mother's death. The thought of losing that steady presence filled him with a mixture of grief and determination to honor her legacy appropriately. The morning that had begun like any other had transformed into a pivotal moment in their lives. As they prepared to face the day ahead, both William and Catherine knew that everything would be different from this point forward. The embrace they shared as they stood to leave the room was filled with unspoken promises, shared fears, and an unwavering commitment to support each other through whatever lay ahead. Their children's laughter echoed from the garden outside, a reminder of the innocent joy that still existed despite the weighty matters at hand. William and Catherine exchanged a meaningful glance, both thinking of how this news would eventually affect George, Charlotte, and Louis. The balance between protecting their childhood and preparing them for their future roles had always been delicate, but now it required even more careful consideration. As Catherine straightened William's tie in a gesture both intimate and symbolic, they prepared to step out into a world that would soon see them differently. The tender moment between them was a reminder that beneath all the protocol and public expectations, they were simply a husband and wife facing an uncertain future together. Their love had weathered many storms, and this challenge would test their bond in ways they had never imagined. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the private sitting room at Windsor Castle, as 3 generations of the royal family gathered for what everyone sensed would be a conversation unlike any other. Queen Elizabeth sat in her favorite armchair, her posture still regal despite the visible signs of her advancing age. Her hands, adorned with rings that told stories of decades of service, rested gently on the armrests as she waited for her family to settle around her. William and Catherine had driven to Windsor immediately after receiving the morning's letter, their children safely in the care of their trusted nanny at Kensington Palace. The weight of the impending conversation had made the journey feel both endless and far too short. As they entered the castle, the familiar scent of lavender and old books brought comfort. Yet today even these comforting elements felt tinged with melancholy. Charles, who had arrived earlier, stood by the window overlooking the east terrace, his silhouette framed against the manicured gardens beyond. His own recent health concerns had aged him visibly, adding urgency to discussions about the future of the monarchy. The irony was not lost on any of them that at a time when stability was most needed, the family was facing multiple transitions simultaneously. The Queen's voice, though softer than in years past, still commanded attention as she began to speak about her reflections on 7 decades of service. She spoke not with regret, but with a deep sense of satisfaction about the changes she had witnessed and helped guide. Her words painted a picture of a monarchy that had evolved with the times while maintaining its core values and connection to the British people. Catherine listened intently, her journalist's instincts helping her absorb not just the words but the emotions behind them. She had always admired the Queen's ability to balance personal feelings with public duty, and now she was witnessing the most personal conversation she had ever shared with her grandmother-in-law. The vulnerability in the monarch's voice revealed the woman behind the crown in a way that few people had ever experienced. William found himself studying his grandmother's face, memorizing every detail as she spoke about her hopes for the future. The weight of knowing that his own destiny was inexorably linked to this moment made him both proud and apprehensive. He thought about the promises he had made on his wedding day, not just to Catherine, but to the institution they both served, and how those promises were about to be tested in ways he had never fully anticipated. The conversation turned to practical matters, the gradual transition of responsibilities, the timing of various announcements, and the delicate balance of maintaining public confidence while acknowledging the reality of the situation. Each decision would have far-reaching consequences, not just for the family but for the Commonwealth realms and the millions of people who looked to the monarchy for stability and continuity. As the discussion progressed, Catherine found herself thinking about her own children and how this conversation would eventually need to be replicated with them. The cycle of preparation and responsibility would continue, and she felt the full weight of helping to shape the next generation of royals who would carry this legacy forward. Her maternal instincts clashed with her understanding of royal duty in ways that were both challenging and enlightening. Charles spoke with a mixture of grief and determination about his own readiness to assume greater responsibilities, while acknowledging his mother's irreplaceable role. The complex emotions of a son watching his mother age while simultaneously preparing to fulfill his life's calling created a dynamic that was both deeply personal and profoundly public. His words revealed years of preparation mixed with the natural reluctance to see this day arrive. The Queen's wisdom shone through as she addressed each family member's concerns with the kind of insight that comes only from decades of experience. She spoke about the importance of maintaining family unity during times of transition, emphasizing that their strength as a family had always been the foundation of their effectiveness as public servants. Her words served as both guidance and blessing for the journey ahead. As the formal discussion concluded, the family shared a quiet moment that transcended their public roles. They were simply a family grappling with the reality of aging, responsibility, and love. The Queen's eyes sparkled with the same warmth that had comforted William throughout his childhood, reassuring him that while roles might change, the bonds between them would remain constant. The drive back to Kensington Palace was filled with contemplative silence as William and Catherine processed everything they had heard. The English countryside rolled past their windows, its eternal beauty providing a stark contrast to the very human emotions they were experiencing. Both knew that their lives had shifted irrevocably during that afternoon conversation, and the weight of their future responsibilities felt more real than ever before. That evening, as they tucked their children into bed, William and Catherine shared knowing glances about the conversations that lay ahead with George, Charlotte, and Louis. The innocence of childhood would need to be preserved while gradually introducing concepts of duty and service that would shape their entire lives. It was a delicate balance that required both courage and wisdom, qualities they hoped to learn from the remarkable woman who had shown them the way. The evening mist had settled over the gardens of Anmer Hall as William and Catherine sought refuge in their Norfolk home, away from the intense scrutiny of London. This countryside retreat had always been their sanctuary, a place where they could simply be themselves without the constant awareness of cameras and protocol. Tonight, however, even this peaceful setting could not entirely ease the turmoil in their hearts. Catherine stood by the kitchen window, absently stirring a cup of tea that had long since grown cold. Her reflection in the glass showed a woman grappling with emotions she had never fully anticipated. When she had married William, she understood intellectually what her future might hold. But the reality of these moments was proving far more complex than any preparation could have provided. The transition from supporting role to central figure felt both natural and overwhelming. William found himself walking the grounds they both loved, his footsteps following familiar paths that had witnessed countless family moments over the years. The children's swing set stood silhouetted against the darkening sky, a reminder of the simpler joys that anchored their family life. He thought about his grandmother's words earlier that day, particularly her emphasis on finding balance between public service and personal happiness. The weight of unspoken expectations pressed heavily on both their minds. The British people, the Commonwealth nations, and indeed the world would be watching their every move as they navigated this transition. Yet beneath all the public considerations lay deeply personal grief about the approaching end of an era. The Queen had been more than a monarch to their family. She had been the steady heartbeat that kept everything connected and meaningful. As Catherine joined William outside, they walked together in comfortable silence, their fingers intertwined in a gesture that had become automatic over their years together. The familiar rhythm of their steps on the gravel path provided a meditative quality to their evening walk. In these quiet moments, they could process their feelings without the need for words, understanding each other through the subtle language of long partnership. Their conversation, when it finally began, revealed fears and hopes they had rarely voiced aloud. Catherine spoke about her concerns for their children's emotional well-being during what promised to be a period of significant change. The delicate balance of maintaining their innocence while preparing them for increased public attention required wisdom they were still developing. Every parenting decision now carried additional weight and consequence. William shared his own struggles with the expectations that had shadowed him since birth, but had never felt as immediate as they did now. The theoretical future had become a practical reality, and the magnitude of following in his grandmother's footsteps felt both inspiring and daunting. He spoke about the responsibility of modernizing the monarchy while honoring its traditions, a challenge that required both innovation and respect for the past. They discussed the practicalities that few people ever considered, the impact on their staff, the changes to their daily routines, and the reality that their home life would inevitably become more complicated. The simple pleasures they treasured, like impromptu family outings or quiet evenings at home, would require more planning and security considerations. The spontaneity that had enriched their family life would need to be balanced against increased responsibilities. Catherine reflected on her own journey from a relatively private life to royal duties, acknowledging how much she had grown and changed. The young woman who had once felt overwhelmed by royal protocol had developed into someone confident in her role. Yet this new chapter would test that confidence in unprecedented ways. She thought about the causes and charities she championed and how her platform might expand to create even greater impact. The couple found themselves discussing their shared values and how to ensure these remained central to their approach regardless of how their roles might evolve. Their commitment to mental health advocacy, environmental causes, and supporting young families had always been genuine, and they wanted to ensure that these passions could flourish, even as other responsibilities increased. Their work had to remain authentic rather than simply dutiful. As the evening deepened, they sat together on the garden bench that had witnessed countless family conversations over the years. The same stars that had shone on previous generations of their family now illuminated their own moment of reflection. There was comfort in this continuity, a reminder that they were part of something larger than themselves while still maintaining their individual identities and relationship. William spoke about memories of his grandmother that had shaped his understanding of service and dedication. Her example of putting duty before personal preference had been a constant throughout his life. Yet he also wanted to ensure that his own children understood the joy and privilege inherent in serving others. The lessons he hoped to pass on combined traditional royal values with more contemporary approaches to family and public engagement. Catherine shared her own evolution in understanding what it truly meant to be part of the royal family. The external trappings and ceremonies, while important, had proven less significant than the genuine opportunities to make a difference in people's lives. Her most meaningful moments had come from connecting with individuals and communities, experiences that had taught her more about leadership than any formal training ever could. As they eventually made their way back to the house, both felt a renewed sense of partnership and purpose. The challenges ahead were significant, but their foundation of mutual support and shared values provided strength for whatever lay ahead. The tender moments they shared that evening, away from public scrutiny, reinforced their commitment to facing the future together while maintaining the love and family connection that made everything else worthwhile. The morning light filtered through the nursery windows at Kensington Palace as Catherine carefully selected books for what she knew would be one of the most important conversations of her children's young lives. George, now old enough to understand complex emotions, had already noticed the hushed conversations and serious expressions that had become more frequent around the palace. Charlotte, with her characteristic perceptiveness, had asked several pointed questions about why everyone seemed worried lately. William joined his wife in the nursery, carrying little Louis, who was still blissfully unaware of the gravity surrounding the family. The innocence in his youngest son's eyes reminded William of the protective instincts that had guided every decision since becoming a father. How do you explain to children that their great-grandmother, whom they adored, was beginning to say goodbye? How do you prepare them for changes they could not yet fully comprehend? Catherine had spent considerable time researching child psychology and consulting with experts about how to approach such sensitive topics with young minds. The balance between honesty and age-appropriate information required careful consideration. She wanted her children to understand the significance of what was happening without overwhelming them with adult concerns or responsibilities they were not ready to bear. George entered the room with the confident stride of a boy who had grown accustomed to being treated as slightly more mature than his years, a reality of his position that both parents tried to manage carefully. His questions about recent family meetings and changes in routine demonstrated an awareness that made this conversation both easier and more challenging. Catherine knelt to his level, her maternal instincts guiding her words as she began to explain. The explanation began with stories about family love and the special role that great-grandmother played in their lives. Catherine spoke about how people get older and sometimes need to rest more, just like how George needed more sleep when he was growing. The analogy helped bridge the gap between childhood understanding and adult reality, allowing for honest communication without unnecessary fear or confusion. Charlotte listened with the intense focus she brought to everything that captured her interest, occasionally asking questions that revealed her emotional intelligence. Her concerns centered more on feelings than facts, wondering if great-grandmother was sad or if she would still want to see them. These questions provided opportunities to reassure while acknowledging that changes were coming to their family dynamic. William found himself drawing on memories of how his own parents had handled difficult conversations during his childhood, particularly after his mother's death. The importance of maintaining honesty while providing security had been crucial lessons that now guided his approach with his own children. He wanted them to feel safe asking questions and expressing their feelings without judgment or dismissal. The conversation evolved naturally as the children processed the information at their own pace. Catherine used their favorite picture books to illustrate concepts about aging, change, and the continuity of love even when circumstances shift. The familiar comfort of story time provided a framework for discussing unfamiliar emotions and situations that might otherwise feel overwhelming. George's questions revealed his growing understanding of his own future responsibilities, though his parents were careful to keep the focus on family relationships rather than constitutional duties. The goal was to help him understand the importance of supporting each other through difficult times rather than burdening him with expectations beyond his years. His natural empathy and protective instincts toward his siblings provided evidence of the character, traits that would serve him well in the future. Charlotte's emotional responses demonstrated her need for extra reassurance about the security of her immediate family unit. Her questions about whether Mommy and Daddy would also get too tired or need to rest more revealed the universal childhood fear of losing the people most important to them. Catherine and William took extra time to provide comfort and stability, emphasizing the strength of their family bond. The discussion included gentle introduction to concepts about public service and why their family's work was important to many people. However, the emphasis remained on the personal relationships and family love that motivated everything else. The children needed to understand that their great-grandmother's decisions came from a place of caring for everyone, including them, rather than any desire to step away from family connections. As the conversation continued, both parents were struck by their children's resilience and capacity for understanding. Children often possess an intuitive wisdom about emotional situations that adults sometimes underestimate. George and Charlotte's responses revealed their ability to grasp complex feelings even when they could not fully articulate their understanding. The morning discussion concluded with renewed emphasis on the importance of spending special time with great-grandmother while they could. Plans were made for visits that would create meaningful memories while respecting the Queen's need for quieter, more intimate family moments. The children's excitement about these plans demonstrated their ability to focus on positive opportunities rather than dwelling on potential losses. Catherine and William exchanged meaningful glances throughout the conversation, each recognizing how well they had managed this delicate balance. Their partnership in parenting had always been strong, but this situation required a level of coordination and sensitivity that tested their ability to present a united front while honoring their individual relationships with the children. The afternoon was spent engaging in normal family activities that reinforced the stability and joy that remained constant in their lives. Playing games, reading stories, and enjoying simple pleasures reminded everyone that, while some things were changing, the fundamental love and security of their family unit remained unshakable. These moments of normalcy provided the foundation that would help the children navigate whatever changes lay ahead. The drive to Windsor Castle on this particular Sunday morning felt different from countless previous family visits. Catherine had packed the children's favorite games and books, but there was an underlying awareness that this gathering held special significance. The autumn leaves created a golden carpet along the long walk, and the familiar sight of the castle towers rising against the gray English sky provided both comfort and a poignant reminder of the history they were all part of. George pressed his face against the car window, counting the deer in the great park as they had done on previous visits, while Charlotte clutched her favorite stuffed animal, somehow sensing that today called for extra comfort. Louis babbled happily in his car seat, blissfully unaware of the emotional undercurrents that surrounded this family outing. William and Catherine exchanged glances, both hoping this day would create the kind of precious memories that would last their children a lifetime. The Queen was waiting in her private sitting room, dressed more casually than usual in a soft lavender cardigan and pearl necklace that caught the light streaming through the tall windows. Her face brightened genuinely as the family entered, and her embrace of each grandchild carried an extra tenderness that spoke to her understanding of this moment's importance. She had prepared for this visit with the same careful attention she brought to state occasions, knowing that family moments required their own form of ceremony. The formal atmosphere of the castle seemed to melt away as the afternoon unfolded into something magical and intimate. The Queen, despite her advancing age, engaged with each child at their level, listening to George's stories about school with genuine interest and admiring Charlotte's latest drawings with the enthusiasm of any devoted great-grandmother. Her ability to be fully present with them, despite the weight of her own reflections, demonstrated the depth of her love and commitment to family. Catherine watched these interactions with a mixture of joy and sadness, recognizing the precious nature of moments that might become increasingly rare. The Queen's patience as Louis climbed onto her lap and played with her jewelry showed a grandmother savoring every second of connection with her youngest great-grandchild. These simple, tender moments revealed the woman behind the monarch in ways that the public rarely witnessed. William found himself studying his grandmother's expressions as she engaged with his children, memorizing the way her eyes crinkled when she laughed and the gentle tone she used when explaining things to them. He was witnessing the same nurturing spirit that had comforted him through his own childhood challenges, now extended to the next generation. The continuity of love across generations provided a powerful reminder of what truly mattered beyond titles and responsibilities. The afternoon included a special tea service in the oak drawing room, with the children's favorite cakes and sandwiches arranged on fine china that had witnessed countless royal family gatherings over the decades. The Queen had specifically requested the informal setting, wanting this meal to feel like a celebration rather than a solemn occasion. Her stories about previous royal children who had played in these same rooms delighted George and Charlotte while connecting them to their heritage during a quiet moment. While the children explored the room's treasures under careful supervision, the Queen shared with William and Catherine her reflections on the privilege of watching her great-grandchildren grow. Her words carried both gratitude for the time she had been given and wisdom about cherishing every ordinary moment that makes up a life well lived. The conversation reinforced the values of family connection that had always been central to her approach to both monarchy and motherhood. The highlight of the visit came when the Queen suggested a walk through her private gardens, an area usually reserved for her personal enjoyment. George's excitement at seeing the special roses that bloomed only for his great-grandmother and Charlotte's wonder at the elaborate fountain created exactly the kind of joyful memories the visit was meant to produce. These moments of discovery and shared exploration strengthened bonds that transcended their formal relationships. As the afternoon progressed, the Queen presented each child with a carefully chosen gift that reflected her understanding of their individual personalities. George received a leather-bound journal for writing his own stories. Charlotte was given a beautiful jewelry box with a dancing ballerina, and Louis received a soft toy that would provide comfort for years to come. Each gift carried personal meaning and demonstrated her thoughtful attention to their developing interests and needs. The family gathered for photographs in the garden, capturing images that would become treasured family heirlooms. The Queen's suggestion that they include some candid shots alongside the formal portraits showed her understanding that the most meaningful pictures often captured spontaneous moments of genuine emotion. Catherine coordinated the photo session with the sensitivity of someone who understood both the personal and historical significance of these images. During the final hour of the visit, the Queen read stories to the children in her private library, her voice bringing familiar tales to life with the skill of someone who had been sharing stories with children and grandchildren for decades. The intimacy of this setting, surrounded by books that had shaped minds and decisions over generations, provided a perfect backdrop for creating new memories while honoring family traditions. As the visit concluded, the goodbye embraces carried extra meaning for the adults while remaining natural and loving for the children. The Queen's whispered words of love and encouragement to each family member revealed her desire to ensure they felt supported and cherished, regardless of what changes lay ahead. Her ability to provide comfort and strength even during her own difficult transition demonstrated the depth of her character and commitment to family. The drive home was filled with excited chatter from the children about their special day, their innocent joy providing a counterpoint to the more complex emotions felt by their parents. William and Catherine recognized that they had just participated in something precious and irreplaceable, a perfect afternoon that had strengthened family bonds while creating memories that would provide comfort and connection for years to come. The communications team at Buckingham Palace had been working quietly for weeks to craft the announcement that would mark a historic transition for the British monarchy. Every word had been carefully considered, every phrase examined for its potential impact on public sentiment and constitutional implications. William and Catherine found themselves at the center of preparations for a moment that would change not only their own lives but the relationship between the Crown and the people it served. The morning of the announcement dawned crisp and clear, with an unusually large crowd already gathering outside Buckingham Palace despite the early hour. News outlets from around the world had been alerted that a significant royal statement would be made, and speculation had reached fever pitch throughout the previous evening. The atmosphere in London carried an electric tension as people sensed they were about to witness a moment that would be remembered for generations. Inside the palace, The Queen sat at her desk for what she knew might be one of her final formal addresses to the nation. Her hands, steady despite her age, held the speech that would formally announce her decision to gradually transition her duties to the next generation. The weight of 7 decades of service informed every word, while her hope for the future colored the tone with optimism rather than resignation. William paced the corridors with uncharacteristic nervousness, his mind racing through the implications of what was about to unfold. The theoretical future he had prepared for his entire life was about to become immediate reality. Catherine, ever his anchor during times of uncertainty, remained nearby, her presence providing the steady support that had become essential to his ability to face public challenges with confidence and grace. The announcement, when it came, was delivered with the dignity and measured tone that had characterized the Queen's communication style throughout her reign. Her words spoke of gratitude for the privilege of service, confidence in the future of the monarchy, and love for the British people who had supported her through decades of change and challenge. The speech struck a perfect balance between acknowledging the significance of the transition and reassuring the public about continuity and stability. Television. Screens across the Commonwealth nations carried the historic address, with millions of viewers recognizing they were witnessing the end of an era while simultaneously seeing the beginning of a new chapter. The Queen's grace and composure during this deeply personal moment demonstrated once again why she had earned such profound respect and affection from people around the world. Her ability to put public reassurance before personal emotion exemplified the very best of royal service. The immediate response from the public was a mixture of sadness, gratitude, and curiosity about what lay ahead. Social media platforms filled with tributes to the Queen's remarkable legacy, while also expressing interest in how William and Catherine would approach their expanded roles. The overwhelming sentiment reflected genuine affection for the entire royal family and confidence in their ability to guide the monarchy through this transition. International leaders quickly issued statements acknowledging the Queen's historic contribution to global stability and expressing continued support for the British monarchy. The diplomatic implications of the transition had been carefully managed, with key allies and Commonwealth partners receiving advance notice to ensure smooth international relations during this period of change. The global response reinforced the monarchy's continued relevance on the world stage. Within hours of the announcement, flowers began appearing outside royal residences across the country as people sought ways to express their emotions about this historic moment. The spontaneous outpouring of public affection demonstrated the deep connection between the Queen and her subjects, while also revealing anticipation about the future direction of the monarchy under William and Catherine's increased leadership. The media coverage, while intense, remained largely respectful and focused on the historical significance of the moment rather than sensational speculation. Years of careful relationship building between the palace and the press had created an atmosphere where the sensitive transition could be covered with appropriate dignity. The balance between public interest and family privacy was maintained despite the unprecedented nature of the situation. Behind the scenes, William and Catherine worked closely with palace staff to ensure that the transition would be as smooth as possible for everyone involved. Their attention to the human impact of these changes, from the household staff to the extended royal family, demonstrated their understanding that successful leadership required consideration for all those affected by major decisions. Their collaborative approach set the tone for their future style of management. The children were carefully shielded from the immediate intensity of media attention while being kept informed about what was happening in age-appropriate ways. Palace security was enhanced around their school, and regular activities to ensure their daily routines could continue as normally as possible. The balance between protecting their childhood and acknowledging their unique position required constant attention and adjustment. As the day progressed, congratulatory messages poured in from organizations and individuals who had worked with William and Catherine over the years. Their charitable partnerships, military connections, and community relationships had created a network of support that would prove invaluable during this transition. The breadth of positive response reinforced their confidence about taking on expanded responsibilities. The evening brought a private family gathering where the immediate royal family could process the day's events away from public scrutiny. The mixture of pride, apprehension, and determination that characterized their conversations reflected the complexity of emotions surrounding such a significant life change. Their mutual support provided strength for facing whatever challenges and opportunities lay ahead. As London settled into night, with news crews still stationed outside royal residences and people continuing to leave flowers and messages, the reality of the new era began to sink in for everyone involved. The announcement had been made, the public had responded with characteristic grace and support, and the future stretched ahead with both promise and uncertainty. William and Catherine fell asleep that night knowing that their lives had changed forever, but feeling confident in their ability to meet whatever challenges awaited them. The golden hour light streamed through the windows of the blue drawing room at Buckingham Palace as the royal family gathered for what they all understood would be a deeply significant private ceremony. The Queen, dressed in her favorite shade of blue with the diamond brooch that had belonged to her mother, sat quietly in her chair, surrounded by the people who meant everything to her. The formal transition of duties would happen gradually over the coming months, but this moment represented the emotional heart of that process. William approached his grandmother with steps that carried the weight of a lifetime of preparation, mixed with the tenderness of genuine love. His face reflected the complex emotions of a grandson saying goodbye to his mentor, while simultaneously accepting the mantle of responsibility she had carried with such grace for so many decades. The distance between them seemed to stretch with significance as he crossed the room toward the woman who had shaped his understanding of duty. Service and sacrifice. Catherine stood nearby, her presence providing the quiet strength that had become essential to William's ability to face life's most challenging moments. Her own relationship with the Queen had evolved from nervous newcomer to trusted family member, and now she was preparing to step into a role that would test everything she had learned about royal service. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears as she watched this profound moment unfold between grandmother and grandson. When William finally reached the Queen, their embrace spoke volumes about the relationship that had sustained them both through years of joy and sorrow. The formal protocols that usually governed their public interactions fell away, replaced by the pure emotion of a family saying goodbye to an era while stepping forward into an uncertain future. The Queen's arms, though frailer than they once were, still carried the strength that had comforted William through his mother's death and every major challenge, since the tenderness of their embrace revealed the deep, personal love that had always existed beneath their formal roles. William's head bent toward his grandmother's shoulder, and for a moment he was simply a beloved grandson rather than a future king. The Queen's whispered words of love and encouragement, meant only for his ears, carried decades of wisdom and blessing for the journey ahead. Their connection transcended titles and constitutional responsibilities, rooted instead in genuine affection and mutual respect. Catherine joined them in what became a three-way embrace that symbolized the continuation of family bonds across generational change. The Queen's acceptance of Catherine as not just William's wife, but as a true daughter of the family had evolved over the years into deep mutual affection and respect. Now, as Catherine prepared to take on greater responsibilities, the Queen's embrace conveyed both blessing and confidence in her ability to support William while making her own meaningful contributions. The children, who had been playing quietly nearby under the watchful eye of their nanny, sensed the importance of the moment and approached with the natural intuition that children possess about emotional situations. George, with his characteristic thoughtfulness, reached out to take his great-grandmother's hand, while Charlotte nestled against William's side, somehow understanding that her father needed comfort as much as he was providing it. The Queen's face brightened as she gathered her great-grandchildren into the embrace, creating a multi-generational moment that captured the essence of family continuity. Little Louis, still too young to understand the significance but drawn by the warmth of family connection, added his own small arms to the group embrace. In this circle of love, the weight of constitutional responsibility seemed secondary to the simple human bonds that made everything else meaningful and worthwhile. Photographs would never capture this private moment, but its impact would resonate through their family for generations to come. The Queen's eyes, bright with unshed tears, took in every detail of her beloved family members' faces, memorizing expressions and gestures that would comfort her in quieter moments ahead. Her legacy, she realized, was not just the constitutional stability she had provided, but the love and values she had instilled in those who would carry forward the family's commitment to service. As the embrace gradually loosened, William found himself looking directly into his grandmother's eyes, seeing there the same strength and wisdom that had guided the nation through decades of change. Her smile carried both sadness and pride, acknowledging the difficulty of letting go while expressing complete confidence in his ability to fulfill the role for which he had been prepared his entire life. No words were necessary to convey the depth of understanding and support that passed between them. Catherine felt the full weight of the moment as she realized she was witnessing the transfer of something far more precious than official duties. The Queen's trust, built over years of observation and shared experiences, was being passed to her and William together. The responsibility felt both overwhelming and natural, grounded in the relationships they had built and the values they had proven they shared with the woman who had exemplified royal service for so many years. The Queen spoke softly to each family member, her words carrying personal messages of love and encouragement that would sustain them through the challenges ahead. To William, she expressed her pride in the man he had become and her confidence in his future leadership. To Catherine, she conveyed gratitude for the happiness and stability she had brought to William's life and the fresh perspective she had offered to royal service. To each grandchild, she offered special words of love and encouragement that they would carry with them always. The formal ceremony that would mark the official transition of duties was still weeks away, but this private moment represented the true passing of responsibility from one generation to the next. The Queen's blessing, given not as a monarch but as a loving grandmother, carried more weight than any constitutional document could convey. Her faith in their ability to serve with honor and compassion provided the foundation for their confidence in facing whatever lay ahead. As the afternoon light began to fade, the family gradually separated, but the warmth of their connection remained palpable in the room. The Queen settled back into her chair with a sense of peace that came from knowing her life's work would continue in capable and loving hands. William and Catherine, still processing the magnitude of what they had just experienced, felt strengthened by the knowledge that they would face the future together, supported by the love and wisdom of their remarkable family matriarch. The children, sensing that something important had concluded, returned to their games with the resilience that characterizes childhood. Their laughter provided a perfect counterpoint to the more serious emotions of the adults, reminding everyone that life would continue with joy and normalcy even as major changes unfolded. The sound of their happiness reinforced the Queen's confidence that the family's future was secure. That evening, as William and Catherine prepared to leave Buckingham Palace, they shared one final quiet moment with the Queen. The formal farewells had been completed, but this last conversation carried the intimacy of family members who understood they were concluding a chapter while beginning another. The Queen's final words to them were simple but profound, a reminder that love and service, when combined, create a legacy that transcends any individual life or reign. The drive back to Kensington Palace was filled with contemplative silence as the family processed the emotional intensity of the afternoon. The children, exhausted by the day's emotions even if they couldn't fully articulate them, dozed in their car seats while William and Catherine held hands, drawing strength from their partnership as they always had during life's most significant moments. The embrace they had shared with the Queen would live in their memory as a perfect symbol of love, trust, and the continuation of something far greater than themselves.